Today, I am going to convince you of two things you absolutely do not want to believe. The first, referees are good, actually.
But when I look at referees and the track record they have of getting things right, I think it's just phenomenal that a human being can, for 90 minutes, get that many things right.
He's offside. Are you leaning forward?
Yes, I have interfering with play.
Okay.
On 17, I have offside. Thank you.
Toby! Tobias! Hey! What are you doing, mate? If it's your free kick, run to the ball. If it's not your free kick, move away, yeah? Toby, it's an easy yellow.
And your second new belief, starting approximately half an hour from now, is that red cards are more exciting than goals.
It's a yellow card. Wait a minute, he's taking another card out for Beckham. It's a red card for David Beckham.
He's pushing and shoving and arguing. A yellow card to Xavi amid the melee.
To convince you, let's look at the game with the most red cards in World Cup history.
Encara a marcação, bobeou, perdeu. Tem que dar cartão pro Costinha. Ele já deu cartão pro Costinha.
Portugal versus the Netherlands in the 2006 World Cup. 16 yellows, 4 reds, 2 melees, uncounted crates of champagne, a Guinness World Record, a PhD in pedagogy, an almighty brouhaha, and a partridge in a pear tree. I'm Nando Vila, and this is the best soccer podcast in the world.
Vamos, Diego, lo estaban agarrando. Canigia, la ley de la ventaja. Canigia, ahora o nunca. El triunfo, Canigia, gol!
Michael Owen, he's got goals with him, but it's still Owen. Oh, what a goal! Yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo, yes! Oh, yes!
The goal all of Italy wanted to see. The man they wanted in the Italian team.
Oh, that's brilliant! Oh, that's wonderful! That is a magnificent goal!
Go Brazil! Pelé!
4 a.m., April 4th, 1561. People of the free imperial city of Nuremberg, in the Holy Roman Empire, awoke to a space battle playing out across the dawn. 2 blood-red semicircle arcs, lights glimmered and shot across the sky. UFOs danced in front of the sun, space orbs. They fell to the earth in a cloud of smoke. A large black triangle appeared. Sights and wonders. 10 days later, Hans Glaser recorded it in a woodcutting. These were like early broadsheets. They often recounted astrological mysteries, which primitive humans could not grasp. The whole event was most likely a sundog or a parhelia, which are halos of sunlight caused by refraction in ice crystals in the atmosphere, especially when the sun is near the horizon. It became known as the Battle of Nuremberg. 9 p.m., June 25th, 2006. Frankenstadion, Nuremberg. The World Cup slogan that year was, "A time to make friends." The match that day set records for total cards and for the most red cards in World Cup history. I think it's fair to say no one made any new pals. It became known as the Battle of Nuremberg.
It's very, very unusual and very emotional, and its story stood out.
This is Michael Jochen.
I'm a freelance football writer. That's it. Yeah. That's what I do for a living. I just write about football.
The World Cup that year was in Germany, the Holy Roman Empire having long since dissolved by 2006. Hey, remember 2006? A little site called Twitter.com launched and rotted all our brains. Google bought YouTube, Disney bought Pixar, Pluto was demoted to a dwarf planet, Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, was killed by a stingray, Dick Cheney shot a man in the face while quail hunting, you asked for a Wii, but got apples to apples on Christmas instead. Hannah Montana debuted on the Disney Channel, George Clooney was, correctly, people's sexiest man alive, Shakira's hips told the absolute truth while you listened on your Microsoft Zune MP3 player. Britney Spears and K-Fed broke up. Saddam Hussein was hanged. And Italy won the World Cup. Zinedine Zidane closed his playing career by headbutting Marco Materazzi in the chest and silently walking down the tunnel in perhaps the most famous red card in soccer history.
Marco Materazzi gets crushed by Zidane.
But that was 2 weeks later. We're still talking about the round of 16 here, which had other red cards, sloppier red cards, sillier.
But, as we know, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the fight in the dog. And there was a lot of fight in all the dogs, as far as I can recall, in that game. It wasn't, in football terms, an edifying spectacle, but it was, by God, it was good to watch in many other ways, because football is about passion, it's about rivalry, it's about drive and desire to win. And I think that every now and then, this is probably why people watch, they love it when they drop the gloves in hockey and that. Every now and then it's nice when we see...
This is James Richardson, the host of the Totally Football Show.
Football can be quite sanitized sometimes, can be quite professional. So when it's clear how much passion, how much humanity there is kind of smouldering away under those kind of polished PR exteriors, I for one, quite like that. I like a brawl.
A brawl is exactly what Portugal defender Fernando Meira called it. This was the last chance for Portugal's golden generation. A remarkable crop of incredible players came through the youth system at the same time. They won back-to-back Under-20 World Cups in 1989 and 91. But by now, Luis Figo, their best player, was well into his mid-30s. Rui Costa had retired already. Some new young talents had emerged, like this kid named Cristiano Ronaldo, then age 21. He was a finicky talent, step-over happy, but had something special. I wonder whatever happened to him.
Especially given the likes here of Twinkle Toes Ronaldo.
Portugal swatted aside the group stages, winning 3 in a row.
Luis Figo, Pauleta! It's Luis Figo. It's Deco! Oh, magnificent! 21-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo waits for referee Poular's whistle, composes himself, and scores!
Simão took the ball on and on and on. Who was marking Maniche? Nobody. Are they dancing? Luis Figo, penalty.
As for the Netherlands, they invented total football in the 70s, a fluid system that went down smooth as Orange Crush. This was a different Netherlands. The coach was Marco van Basten, a legendary striker for AC Milan and the Dutch national team who won the Ballon d'Or 3 times.
Arnold Muren hits the cross all the way to the back post. It's Van Basten! Oh, he's gone for it!
Van Basten. Oh, the goal! What a goal!
When he played for Milan, his coach was legendary Italian tactician Arrigo Sacchi. It took Sacchi many crates of champagne to win over snobby Van Basten. Sacchi would bet a crate that 10 players of Van Basten's choice couldn't break down 4 well-drilled defenders. If Sacchi had called in all his winnings, he'd still be drunk today. Van Basten, a legendary forward who liked to score goals, absorbed the importance of an organized defense. He had yet to lose as Netherlands coach, going unbeaten in the group stages.
Helped on its way to Robben, who's got the pace here, only the keeper to beat. And Arjen Robben opens the Dutch account.
Van Persie, oh! You don't score better goals in a World Cup than that. 2-3 goalkeepers wouldn't have kept that one out. Ruud van Nistelrooy has steered Holland 2 goals clear.
To give you an idea of what kind of coach Van Basten was, against Portugal, he benched Ruud van Nistelrooy, the ruthless Manchester United striker who would sign for Real Madrid that summer, for Dirk Kuyt. Kuyt made up for a complete lack of imagination or flair with stamina and effort. He lived his life permanently panting, with puffed red cheeks. The team was built around a curly-haired midfielder named Mark van Bommel. A time to make friends, you say? No, thank you, sir. Van Bommel has never carved out time for that in his entire life. 2 minutes into the game, Van Bommel set the tone. He hit Ronaldo hard with a late tackle along the touchline. Yellow card. Mark Peter Gertrude Andreas Van Bommel was coming off winning the La Liga and Champions League double with Barcelona in his only season there. He'd learned Spanish in a convent outside of Eindhoven. But this man was no saint. In a 21-year career that spanned league titles in the Netherlands, Spain, Germany, and Italy, Van Bommel picked up 13 reds, including one in his final match. He was a dirty player. This was a dirty Dutch team. And we're off to the races. Five minutes later, Khalid Boulahrouz stomped on Ronaldo's thigh. Cristiano writhed on the floor and pointed to his leg, so everyone could see where the owie was. Magic spray and lots of rubbing got him back on the field, but it was a clear red.
Cristiano Ronaldo was substituted after sustaining a knee injury from multiple heavy tackles.
He's fighting back the tears. Let's hope his FIFA World Cup is not over.
That was the game in which Khalid Boulahrouz was instructed to just injure Cristiano Ronaldo. That was his mission, and he succeeded in that mission.
Medics taped up Ronaldo's thigh a few minutes later. He was clearly in pain.
Boulahrouz, he was a very limited defender, very physical, tactically very sound, but, well, he couldn't really play football. He just could, all he knew was to tackling.
His name was Khalid der Cannibale, or Khalid the Cannibal. Once, he told a friend he was sharpening his studs for the upcoming match, quote, "I only want one thing, to eat a striker." The nickname stuck. Boulahrouz preferred to call himself his mother's son. He grew up in a Moroccan family with 8 siblings. At 16, his dad died and he became responsible for the family financially. In his early playing days, he drove a VW Golf, but couldn't afford the gas to keep it running. Dutch goalkeeper Edwin van der Sar, who made a record 113th appearance in this game, called Boulahrouz the type of teammate you want around on the long nights at training camps. What I'm trying to say is that he was a complete human being, with needs and desires and terrors and sorrows. But we know him only as a butcher. With a scar down his face, a knife between his teeth, an insatiable urge to maim. Boulahrouz snuck in one more thigh kick and Ronaldo had to be subbed out, sobbing as Simão Sabrosa replaced him. A year and a half later, Ronaldo still had the scar. Once, Van Basten asked Boulahrouz if the tactical instructions were clear. Boulahrouz nodded. Quote, "No mouse gets through, boss." There was no way Ronaldo was going to escape this one unscathed.
They shouldn't do that. And they shouldn't just hunt Cristiano Ronaldo down until he's injured and substituted in the first half. It was just... I didn't like it.
Portugal hit back. Maniche got a yellow card for coming through the back of Van Bommel, who clearly made the most of it. Then Maniche scored. 1-0. A proper match was threatening to break out. But fret not, friend. That never happened. After half an hour, Costinha committed to a long sliding lunge that really, he was never going to get the ball. It looked like slow motion as he slid across the field and into the referee's notebook. A few minutes before the half, Nuno Valente hit Arjen Robben in the chest, with his studs, in the box. The referee decided to whistle offside rather than deal with all of that. And then, in first half stoppage time, Costinha tried to head the ball, but it's about 2 feet from his bald scalp. His hand slaps it instead. He's on the halfway line. There's really no point. But it's his second yellow, so we have our first red. Portugal coach Luis Felipe Scolari draped his hand over the dugout, looking back over his shoulder and shaking his head. This was Scolari's 11th World Cup game. He'd won the previous 10, including the whole dang tournament in 2002 with Brazil. His Portugal team was, let's call it, less refined.
You expect Portugal to play that way. They love to play dirty, historically.
Halftime. We're at 6 yellows and 1 red. In the second half, Kaut had a breakaway he flubbed, and Philippe Cocu hit the post. But the actual business of trying to get the ball in the net was the B-plot here. The real game was seeing who could collect the most cards. Minute 50. Substitute Petit touched Van Bommel, who spun wildly to the ground and sold it. Yellow. Minute 59. A late Giovanni Van Bronckhorst tackle on Deco. Yellow. In the aftermath, Luis Figo headbutted Van Bommel behind the referee's back. You can see the pause. Then Van Bommel puts his hand over his face and collapses to the ground. Yellow. After the game, Scolari said, quote, "Jesus Christ said he would turn the other cheek. but Figo is not Jesus Christ. There you have it. Minute 63. Boulorouz got back at not Jesus Christ by elbowing Figo on his big honking nose. Second yellow. Red. Both benches cleared for the melee, which is always fun. Andre Oyer had to be held back. Minute 67. Johnny Heitinga comes on for Van Bommel. Somehow, against all the odds, Van Bommel survived this game without getting sent off. He finished his international career with 79 appearances, 10 goals, 10 assists, 13 yellows, and because there is no justice in this dark and cruel world, 0 red cards. Minute 73. The Netherlands break an unwritten rule by refusing to give the ball back. Portugal had to put it out of bounds so a player could receive medical treatment. Deco comes streaming in, foot at knee height, and smacks Johnny Heitinga's trailing foot. Heitinga soars through the air in a gorgeous arc. Yellow. Petit was leaning over Heitinga, who was crumped on the floor, to scream at him for not giving the ball back. So Wesley Schneider bundled him over. Yellow. Rafael van der Vaart got booked in the aftermath as players crowded around. I have no idea what exactly for. One match report called it, apparently for dissent? Yellow. Minute 76. Portuguese goalkeeper Ricardo got booked for, well, let's just say the ref was trigger happy at this point. Match report, quote, presumably for time wasting? That same minute, Valente snuck in a nice thwack on the back of Van Persie's ankles. Minute 78, Deco scooped up the ball and refused to give it back for the Netherlands to take their free kick. Cocu spun him around to the ground. Deco's second yellow. Red. For some reason, Cocu wasn't booked. I'm unclear why. Scolari is gesturing and screaming at the ref. Van Basten looks like his brain has shorted out. He's just standing still, eyes darting around, while he keeps rubbing his nose with 2 fingers. Minute 95. Van Bronckhorst is trying to start a counterattack when Maniche scoops the ball away. Van Bronckhorst then clatters into him, second yellow, red. Van Basten is still holding his face, just staring and not moving. He said there was no soccer played in the second half. When Van Basten went to shake Scolari's hand, the Brazilian was too busy dancing and waving the Portuguese flag in the middle of the field. The lasting image of this game is of the ejected Van Bronckhorst and Deco sitting on the steps next to each other, gesturing and bitching about the referee together. Barcelona teammates, international rivals, united in their hatred of the referee. It's what binds us all together, really. Common enemies. Many across the globe picked the same villain. The LA Times called the refereeing atrocious, pitiful. It called the 2006 World Cup irrevocably tainted. Van Basten said, quote, the referee made a mess of it. He called the game chaos.
After the final whistle, Barcelona teammates Deco and Van Bronckhorst were spotted brotherly sitting next to each other on the sidelines, wondering what had just happened.
FIFA president Sepp Blatter said the ref wasn't at the same level as the players and suggested he should give himself a yellow card. Van Nistelrooy said the referee was permanently holding up a card and seemed determined to book everybody. The New York Times called him petty. Ronaldo said the referee shouldn't get any more games in the World Cup, and, well, he didn't. So who was this referee that everyone hated? Valentin Ivanov was a 44-year-old music teacher from Moscow. His parents had met as teenagers at the 1956 Olympics, where they each won gold. His father, Valentin Kosmich Ivanov, went on to finish as a joint top scorer of the 1962 World Cup and won the Euros. He later coached Torpedo Moscow to a league title. Yes, that's a real team name. Son Valentin Valentinovich Ivanov was also a striker for Torpedo Moscow and reached the final of the Soviet Cup. Then, Junior went into refereeing. This was his last World Cup before aging out at 45. He said this game, the Battle of Nuremberg, was the toughest of his career in terms of rudeness.
Actually, Ivanov was criticized for his performance, but I thought that he was handed an absolutely impossible task in that game, and he actually had a good game. All the players who were sent off deserved to be sent off.
Twitter hadn't taken off yet, so people on the internet started websites arguing the pros and cons of Junior's continued existence, debating the merits. Ivanov joked that he would go into politics. His father stood up for him, pointing out that FIFA had asked referees to be stricter. The 2006 tournament finished with a record high of 345 yellow cards and 28 reds. Ivanov's mother had the more emotional defense. Her son speaks perfect English. He has a PhD in pedagogy. Quote, "But his father dragged him into football. With that, my life came to an end." A bit dramatic. What I'm trying to say is that he was a complete human being with needs and desires and terrors and sorrows.
Ivanov is not the best referee in history. He's not. But no, I think even the best referee ever wouldn't have been able to handle that game properly, because some of the players took the field in order to kick and injure other players.
So who was at fault for how the game turned out? Ivanov himself said it's hard to determine why a game suddenly becomes so rough. Quote, "But it happens." He added that the Portuguese game plan was expected. The Dutch surprised him.
But the Dutch are not like that. And the very fact that Marco van Basten, of all people, he was the coach, and he was such an elegant striker.
Van Basten accomplished everything in his short playing career. Besides winning the Ballon d'Or thrice, he won the Euros, 2 European Cups, and 3 Serie A titles. He retired at 28 from injuries.
The fact that Marco van Basten decided to send out his players in order to injure opponents, it's just disgusting. It's the fact that Marco van Basten became such a cynical and negative coach. It was very, very, very disappointing, because really disappointing.
After the game, both Mark van Bommel and Ruud van Nistelrooy refused to play for Van Basten ever again. Ronaldo said that the fouls had clearly been intended to injure him. FIFA talks about fair play, Scolari said. There was no fair play. The game finished with 16 yellows and 4 reds, a World Cup record. And just think how many more there would have been if Pepe had earned his Portuguese citizenship a year earlier. In the same World Cup, English referee Graham Poll gave a Croatian player 3 yellow cards before sending him off. Josip Simunic. Referee mistakes stand out. We tend to talk about any other aspect of the game if it's well reffed.
Personally, I take a positive view of the referees. I cannot conceive. I think I can. I think I can conceive of how difficult it is to be a referee, or particularly a linesman. But I know that I can't, because what I think of the difficulty is if I was ever placed in that situation for real, even for 5 minutes, given a linesman's job and told to try and make important decisions which other people are going to be relying on, the ignominy is going to follow swiftly on my heels if I dare to make a mistake. I cannot conceive of how difficult that is. And I know they get things wrong.
Ivanov's mother agrees.
But when I look at referees and the track record they have of getting things right, I think it's just phenomenal that a human being can, for 90 minutes, get that many things right. They get some stuff wrong, but go back 20, 30 years and watch some of the decisions then, and oh my word.
I want to talk about something else. Everyone complained about Ivanov's performance, but this game freaking rocked. Everyone likes goals, the whoosh of the ball in the net, the eruption of a yell in our throat before you fully register what's actually happened, the surge in the crowd, the moment the players drop their guard and hug each other like tizzy little children. But you know what's more rare than goals? Red cards. More than even a goal, a red drastically alters the match. You've got to play with 1 fewer human on your team. You will almost certainly lose. We should hold the beloved red card in a place of honor. Cherish them. Listen, I get it. If you're Dutch or Portuguese, this game was bullshit. But if you're from one of 209 other national confederations that FIFA recognizes, holy hell, this game was fun. Our primitive brains could barely grasp it. Sights and wonders.
But I think on the occasions that it's touched my own that I've had skin in the game, you just move on. Because the other thing about football is that next week, there'll be a fresh story. Next week, you might win. Next week, I don't know. It's just a sport that continually renews.
The Netherlands went on to make the final in the following World Cup, 2010. There, famously, Nigel de Jong cleated Xabi Alonso in the chest.
he's lucky. That could have been a red card. Probably should have been. No attempt to play the ball at all, and that's a kung fu kick to the chest.
Portugal went on to win the Euros in 2016.
Eder celebrates because he's the man that has won the European Championship for Portugal.
So the referee isn't something that I fixate on. Yeah, and I salute them because, as I say, I cannot conceive of how difficult it is what they do. And I think of all the incredible people, the incredible performers, the incredible talents that we see in football, possibly referees are among the best.
In the Guinness Book of World Records, the game with the most red cards came in the Argentine 5th Division. A 2011 match deteriorated into a full-fledged bench-clearing brawl. Fans even joined in the fighting. The referee sent off all 22 players plus 14 subs and coaches. 36 red cards in total. Sights and wonders. No one cares how many goals were scored. The Best Soccer Podcast in the World is a production of Exile Content Studios in partnership with iHeart's My Cultura Podcast Network and is hosted by me, Nando Vila. Produced by Ana Isabel Octavio and Zach Lee Rigg. Written by Zach Lee Rigg. Production assistance by Stella Emmett. Our executive producers are Isaac Lee, Rose Reed, and myself, Nando Vila. Our executive producers at iHeart are Giselle Bances and Arlene Santana. Sound design by Pachi Quiñones. Our awesome theme song is by Lou J. Special thanks to all the voices who participated in this episode, Michael Yokin and James Richardson. For more podcasts, listen to the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.